Welcome to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
The podcast is about exactly what it says. Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem. We talk true crime and monsters and ghosties and cryptozoological goodies.
Yes.
Yes. So, who are you?
I don't know why that question took me.
I don't know. I don't know.
I got this look of panic, like, who am I today? But before I introduce myself, I'm going to say this podcast is probably not suitable for work because we are potty mouths occasionally. We talk about topics that are gory and disgusting and gross and blunt.
Murder and stuff.
Yeah. Murder and monsters.
Yeah. And you know what? Ghosts are often a result of murder.
That is true. That is very true.
So, yeah.
And yes, if you have someone young or old or just has delicate ears.
Young, old, or delicate. Yeah. That should be our...
So, my name is M.B. Partlow. I am a writer. I am not Elmer Fudd.
Well, good. I am not Yosemite Sam.
See?
Sometimes I have his temper, though.
That's all I'm going to say about me today.
Okay. Did you say your name?
I did. I said I'm M.B. Partlow.
Oh, okay.
Not Elmer Fudd.
Oh, okay. I just heard the Elmer Fudd play. I just wasn't listening. That's all. I know who you are already, so.
This is true. Who are you?
I'm Shannon Lawrence, writer, mother, student, auteur. Wait, I don't even know what that means anymore.
What is your website? Your
www.thewarriormuse.com. I realized, so when my daughter recently went through neuropsychological testing, right? And I sat in, which apparently not all parents do. So her neuropsych was like, I love it when parents are like involved in sit-in. I'm like, good Lord, what?
Why would you not?
First of all, it was 4.5 hours of testing. Like, did they just go somewhere, get some tea, coffee somewhere?
A meal.
But it astounded me because there was a portion of it where she was asked vocab. Mm-hmm. And she was defining it like a dictionary. Like, she knew exactly, here is the definition. And I was like, I can't do that. And I'm a writer, but much of my vocab, and for her too, though, has been absorbed through reading. Mm-hmm. So it just fascinated me when she was just pop, 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 right? But, okay, she couldn't define the emotional words that way.
Oh, interesting.
And to say she was found to have autism spectrum disorder, so that makes sense. But it fascinated me. I was like, wow, you just shot out the definitions for some of these words that I could ramble for 5 minutes and tell you this is what it means.
Yes.
But she just gave these concrete, to the point definitions of these words, and it was amazing. Wow. And then, fascinating.
Yeah.
Before we jump into, talk of what we've done this week and stuff, I wanted to bring up something that I've been meaning to mention just because it's kind of fun. So, the first episode I would have done the Colorado Springs, right?
Yes.
So, the first episode I talked about Robert Charles Brown, the killer of Heatherdown Church, right?
Right.
And who turned out to be a serial killer. And in that episode, I mentioned somebody named Lou Smith, who was one of the cold case detectives that was working with Brown to find out who else he'd killed. Mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of fun. I even mentioned in that episode that he was famous for having been on the JonBenet Ramsey case. Well, lo and behold, it turned out that somebody that you and I both know who mm-hmm. She's still in the local writing community, even though she doesn't live here anymore. I think she moved to New Mexico. Dawn Smith Miller. See that name I mentioned right in the middle, Smith? It turns out that's her dad.
That's so awesome.
I didn't know. And then she posted, hey, my late dad is in 2 documentaries right now, like features heavily in them. And apparently she's even in one of them, like as a little girl, I think. Her siblings are in them. So anyway, there was a 2020 special and then a special on Discovery Plus because it's the anniversary of JonBenet Ramsey's death. Mm-hmm. And so she's popping up everywhere again, of course. But anyway, I just thought that was fun because it was somebody that we knew, and that's part of the writing community.
That would be interesting to watch a documentary and see one of your parents in it.
Yeah.
That would be really weird.
it would be bizarre. Especially
Amazing.
for me, because I'd be like, why are you in this documentary? Oh, my dad could have been in like an NSA documentary.
Yes.
And he helped put together, he was part of the computer stuff at NORAD for the DEF CON, all that, whatever. Shit he wasn't allowed to talk about.
Yes.
So I guess he could be on a documentary about that. But he did. So he wouldn't be interviewed in it. All right.
No.
What have you been doing this week?
I have. Well, I finally watched Freaky.
Yay, me too. Oh, yeah.
My one complaint was that it wasn't long enough. I thought if they had given it, because it was like one of those, I like a 2-hour movie, generally speaking. And this was pretty much your basic 90-minute movie.
Yeah.
And I thought if they'd given it just a tiny bit more time, it could have fleshed out just a little bit more. I mean, I loved it. Vince Vaughn playing a, 15 or 16-year-old girl.
Some of the things he did, it was he'd do a body movement and just,
yes.
I would laugh hysterically.
Yes, it was absolutely hilarious.
I admit, in my head, it was better, and therefore, once I watched it, it was a little bit of a letdown for me, because, I don't know, I'd built it up.
Yes.
But it wasn't bad. I think next time I watch it, I'll like it more, because I'll be more realistically looking at it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I also didn't like having to pay as much as I did for it.
Yeah, I did the $20 or whatever thing, too.
I think it came down from that, but it still, I was like, I'm notoriously cheap, so that was one of the things I did. What have you watched anything good?
So, I've been on a kick. These are all older movies.
Okay.
I watched The Entity, which I'm going to talk about later in this episode, it's got Barbara Hershey in it. It's so well acted. It's intense. Oh, I don't know how I hadn't seen it before.
I don't either. I think I saw it in the theater.
So I did read that it came out the same year as Poltergeist, and Poltergeist kind of knocked it out of the water.
I can see that.
Yeah. So they were similar, and E.T. also came out that year, so it just kind of got buried.
What a good year.
Right? I think it was, 1982 or something like that. So I would have been 5 when it came out, so maybe that's why I didn't see it. But you know what? Cat People came out that year, and my grandma took me to the movie theater to see Cat People, which my mom was pissed. Okay. And then I was on a James Spader kick, because it popped. So I watched.
I love him so much.
I had never seen these movies or heard of them. And by the way, I think I missed out on like the premium Spader years before, because damn, he was hot.
Yes, he was.
I know. And the thing is, I've seen him in other stuff, but I think I've started seeing him as an adult, like in Wolf and stuff like that. So anyway,
I forgot he was in that. Okay, so what did you watch?
I watched Jack's Back, which was, I don't know what you'd call it, thriller. But so it's some guys killing in exactly the style that Jack the Ripper killed in.
I don't know if I watched that one or not.
Yeah.
Good?
It was good. He plays his own twin.
Okay.
So one of him gets murdered by the dude who's... Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So
that's just funny. One of him
gets murdered. And, well, it's super confusing the way they played it out, because you don't see the twin ahead of time. So you see him get killed, and then he wakes up from a nightmare of him getting killed. And I'm like, huh? And then he's got a scar on his face, so I'm like, wait, did he survive that? But his face didn't get cut. So it was this whole several-minute thing until he runs down, because he had dreamed of his twin being murdered when it was happening. So anyway, and then I watched something called Tough Turf, and it's Tuff, Turf, with him in it, because it popped up. These
heard of it.
All on Amazon Prime that I watched these. So it was just like the next one, the next one, the next one, while I was doing stuff. And it's a gang movie. So I'm just going to say, in the 80s, there was apparently a really big problem with women getting involved with the head of a gang of wily white gang members and the man thought that she belonged to him. And then he would try to kill whoever she was actually interested in, because around that same time, Tammy and the T-Rex. So it's Tammy and the T-Rex, or Tammy and the Teenage T-Rex, depending on where you go, because somebody screwed up the boards. Now I know that because it was on Joe Bob Briggs' last drive-in on Friday. They're the same. Okay, they're the same theme, except that one has a animatronic dinosaur and somebody's brain gets implanted in it. And
all right,
yeah. So anyway, I'm just like, what? Why are 80s movies like? I know if I sat there and thought there would be more where the guy thinks that she belongs to him, and but anyway, Tough Truth was actually really good. And Robert Downey Jr. was in it, a young Robert Downey Jr. as his friend, whose big brother is in a gang, and yeah. So anyway, I really enjoyed it. But yeah.
I understand.
So none of those were new, but it was a fun kick to be on.
Oh, did you see the new Equalizer?
No, I don't have cable, so
I don't know if you can watch it online somewhere or not. I watched the first episode.
It's Queen Latifah's in it, right?
Yes, that's why. Let me tell you. Mm-hmm. Could I age half as well as she is? No. Apparently not. I mean, the answer is no, but
I don't think she really looks any.
She does look. Okay, first of all, she doesn't look her age.
No.
But she does look older than she used to. I mean, obviously, she doesn't look exactly like. But she's aging so fucking beautifully. She's so gorgeous. And here's the other thing. You get these, when you get broad sweeping generalization alert, you get these women who are badass. And they all weigh about 98 pounds. And they're kicking the shit out of people 4 times their size. Queen Latifah is not a 98-pound weakling. Nope. She is a real woman. So it looks good when she's just knocking the fucking piss out of somebody.
I can't wait until I can watch it.
It's a beautiful thing.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I really liked it.
Yeah, add that to the list of stuff I can't watch. There's something else. What is it on? Damn it. I don't know. There's something else that everybody's talking about, and I'm like, now I can't watch it.
I don't know what it is.
There's several things. I know The Stand is one that I can't watch right now, but there was something else that I kept happening.
CBS All Access.
The thing I can't watch that everybody with cable can watch is the Alien one with Alan Tudyk.
Oh, Resident Alien?
Yeah. Yeah, shut up. It's not fair. I went to Hulu. Apparently, you have to have the premium Hulu to watch it, which makes me sad.
Oh, that... Okay, so not the last episode, but the week before... There was a scene that made me laugh so hard. I rewound it. I know rewind isn't. I backed it up and watched it again and laughed just as hard the second time. It was a little scene of physical comedy, and it was just he's brilliant.
Yeah. But this is totally the type of thing my dad and I would have watched together. Like we watched X-Files and V, and it was always these kind of dark sci-fi things that we watched together, but also the comedy stuff because my dad was nothing if not a man with a sense of humor.
And Resident Alien does have quite a bit of humor in it.
Yeah. Do you have Disney Plus?
I do.
I've been watching WandaVision. Have you watched it?
Yeah, it's getting dark. It is. Yes, I mostly like it, but sometimes I'm like, oh, that's just one of them ended, and I was like, well, that's just fucking depressing. I don't think it was the most recent one on Friday night. I think it was the one before.
Okay.
I can't remember how it ended, but I was just like, oh, it was when he said, you can't control me like you do everyone else. And she was like, I can't. And I just... Right.
And I was all, oh, girl.
I was just like, that. No, that's not what this is.
Jeff and I are trying to figure out if there is a purposeful casting. So there's been talk, right, that they were going to kind of join Avengers with the X-Men universe at some point.
Oh.
And somebody she's pulled in to replace somebody.
Okay, I know what you're talking about.
Is an X-Men character who has those same abilities. And we're wondering if that's intentional because it certainly seems to be because he's talking the same as he does in the X-Men movie.
I bet it is.
Right.
Because everything in that series
So she pulled in possibly a mutant for this role. So anyway, I'm very intrigued about that, and I don't know how much to say because I'm like, is it a spoiler? Really? I don't know.
Well, it would.
And there's just so much that I only watched that last Avengers once. So right. I'm all, wait, what? Oh yeah, that was.
So when it first happened, the woman who played Max on.
Oh yeah, Kat Denning.
Yeah, her. I love her. Mm-hmm. She even remarked on it.
Okay.
Because she said she did this to this character.
Okay.
And On the next one, on the very next episode, there was a flashback. So people like me who are a little bit slower. Oh, right. It is someone different. So that's all. Yeah. Although by the time this airs, it will be. Everybody will probably be caught up. Yeah,
if they've got it, but still, yeah. And so if you've seen it, then you're probably going to know what I'm talking about. And they're building a lot of stuff into this show.
They really are.
Speaking of which, there's another show that they're going to be doing that I'm probably not going to watch, which is sad because I like one of the characters. Is it Falcon? The Falcon? What is his name?
Oh, the movie Falcon and
Bucky. I think it's supposed to be a TV show. I fucking hate Bucky. I have always fucking hated Bucky. I don't know why he's so big in the movie, so I'm not going to watch it, even though I like the other guy.
I don't know.
Why him? Of all the characters to bring back. Seriously. I know some people love him, and I don't know why. And I'm not sorry. Just so you know, I don't like him. But he crossed Iron Man. And you can't cross RDJ for me and Iron Man and no. No.
Okay.
That one made me very mad. And so now I'm disappointed because I can't watch. Like, I want the Falcon to have his own stuff, if that's his character name. I am not one of those people who can just remember everybody's freaking name.
Nope.
Character
days
name.
I can't remember my children's names, so.
Hey, since we've had a delay in filming, I've actually read some things.
What have you read?
I'm so excited. I read the 5. I think that's pertinent since I watched Jack's Back, right? I read the 5.
Oh, yeah.
Untold Lives of the Women Killed by Jack the Ripper by Hallie Rubenhold. So it's not at all about Jack the Ripper. In fact, each section on each of these women kind of ends lightly with it doesn't even talk about the manner they were killed by Jack the Ripper.
Oh.
It talks about maybe their funeral service, if they had something. But it's little mini biographies of each of the women. That's considered one of the 5 canonical victims of Jack the Ripper. But something that was said in the one, is her last name Mary Kelly, the last one who was killed inside the building, really raises questions as to whether, for me, Jack the Ripper's even the one who killed her. And I've always thought about that because her death was so different than the other women. She was killed inside her own little apartment or whatever they would have called it.
Her little flat.
And her death was much more brutal. Her vivisection or whatever was more brutal, but then again, he was inside sheltered instead of outside, so he had more time.
Right.
So I just don't know.
Could he have been escalating?
But here's the fascinating thing that I really just want to get out there from that book, and it's that they weren't all prostitutes.
That is what we are led to believe.
Right. And in that Jack's Back movie, of course, they were all prostitutes that he was killing. And that was just the Victorian bias of the day, that if a woman was on the streets, well, then she must have been porking somebody for money. Mm-hmm. And some of them did, but Mary Kelly was the only one who was outright, yeah, I'm a prostitute.
Is it Mary Kelly or Mary Riley?
Mary Riley's different.
Is it?
It's a horror
movie.
Yeah, Mary Kelly.
Okay.
She's fascinating, though, because, like, they don't know. She disappeared in England. Nobody can find her past. That's not her real name.
Ooh.
I know! Anyway, it's a really, really good book, and she handles it really. This woman did so much research to write this book. She had the lease documents on apartments for some of them. She had any police files that were still available and the court documents, and she just medical records and records from a church that one of the women was from, was it Sweden or from one of those Norwegian sort of countries.
One of those Scandinavian countries.
There you go. Yeah, Norway, Norwegian. Anyway, yes, from one of the Scandinavian countries, and she'd come here. But she's very human with them. And I will say, she doesn't also pretend that they were better people than they were. One of the threads that does run through all of them is alcoholism.
Oh.
Yeah. Which at that time was pretty normal because nobody was drinking water from the Thames.
Well, the water wasn't safe to drink.
No.
So.
So they would drink beer and, so.
Same thing with
is
the
it
settler
a surprise that everybody was pretty much an alcoholic? No. So anyway, I read that. It was really good. I highly recommend.
Oh, cool. I will look for that. I finally read, I got this series of books. It's about a lawyer. They're mysteries. But the main character is named Tubby Dubonnet. Maybe it's Dubonnet, but I think it's Dubonnet. In New Orleans. And it's written by Tony Dunbar. So I read the first one. I bought like 9. It came in a box set. So I just read the first one. It's called A Crooked Man. And I bought it because this is the one that it opens with the character is drinking beer with his bestest drinking buddy, whose name is Raisin Partlow.
Oh, that's right. Okay, that's why it sounded familiar. So I knew you'd bought it, but you hadn't read it yet.
Hadn't read it, and I've started the second one. And Raisin is not a major character. He just shows up when Tubby needs a break.
Can I tell you oddly that when you say the name Raisin, I thought it would be a female.
Oh.
Maybe because they are the ones who typically have the weird names.
Weird fruit names.
A fruit, apple.
Apple, yep.
What is it?
Paltrow. The only thing, so I really like the character. I think you really get a nice kind of, it has a real New Orleans vibe, that slow, moving, easy feel. However, the one thing I do not like, and because this is an ebook, maybe it's a formatting thing, I am tempted to write to the author and ask him. He does POV shifts mid-paragraph.
Oh.
So you're in one character's head, and then in the next sentence, you're in another character's head. And so it made me go, what the fuck?
Oh, so it wasn't even well done where
Oh, no, because sometimes it's seamless. But
yeah.
no, it would be like, Tubby sat down at the table. Casey ran down the road, and I'm like, wait, where's Tubby? Where did Casey come from? It was just too abrupt.
Who's
Casey?
No.
They were good.
Okay.
The first one was good. I will keep reading them. I don't know that I'm going to read them one right after the other, but
okay.
I will.
At least it was good.
Yes.
Did you read anything else?
I did.
You always have more read than I do.
I read Bloodline by Jess Lurie.
Oh, yeah. I know that name.
It was just mentioned in the... maybe she's written other stuff as well, because I was like, that name does sound really familiar. It was written up in the Gazette today.
Oh.
And I was like, why does that sound familiar? So it's and the review said exactly what I thought. It's got a very Stepford Wives vibe. It's kind of set in the 60s. And this woman is pregnant and she gets mugged. So her boyfriend convinces her to move back to his hometown with him. And it's this little perfect town in the middle of, I can't remember what state. And once she gets there, it's like all the women act the same and they all belong to this group, the mother's group, and all the men belong to a different group, but I think it's called the father's group. And it's very creepy, and it doesn't have you're not going to read this and go, well, I know what's going to happen because it's Stepford, because it's not. But it has that vibe, but it's a totally different story.
Okay.
And it's so in her head. And also, Stepford Wives, which I just reread, is practically a novella. It's very, very short.
Yes, it is.
So
it's good though.
It is really good. This is just more. It is also more modern writing. So, because I wrote that in the 70s.
Yeah.
So this
Six,
was, I think it came out in like 72.
Okay.
Something like that. So who the hell knows when he wrote it. But yeah, that was really, really good. I would highly recommend that one because I enjoyed it.
I'll make a note of it.
And it has a really creepy twist.
Yay!
What about...
I like a creepy twist.
Yes. What about you? Have you read anything else?
No. I was still reading Lucky Man by Michael J. Fox. Yes. So I finished it, but I'd already mentioned that one. So you went out for Valentine's?
Yes.
So it's just so people know we are recording this on Valentine's, even though it won't play until March.
That is how we roll.
Yeah. How was your dinner out?
Yes, we went to the Warehouse and it was phenomenal. And it was really nice because they have a gallery. It's like the restaurant on one side and the gallery on the other. So they've moved and put tables in the gallery so they can accommodate more people.
Yeah, yeah.
So I had, what was it? It was fish. I can't remember. Was it sea bass? I don't know. It was delicious, and I had these little lemon tarts for dessert that I wanted to lick the plate.
Ooh.
The lemon curd was so good. And there was this little tiny drizzle of lemon syrup, which I thought was going to be a sweet, simple syrup, but it was really tart and tangy. Oh, it was delicious. I don't know. Joe had some dessert. Oh, he had creme brulee, which he said was delicious. And I was like, it's custard.
That's what my husband would say, except gagging.
Yes, but the food was phenomenal. And, of course, the service is always great there.
That's good. We did a home date because Joe Bob's last drive-in was on, and so it's always a 2-movie span that starts at 7 p.m.
What did you have for dinner with your movie date?
We were going to get something new, and then because I wanted to try something, you know.
Yeah.
But by the time we got to that, I was like, nah. So we went to Zyka and got Indian food.
Okay.
I did try something new at Zyka instead of my usual, because I usually do Kerala curry because it's non-dairy. But I don't even remember what it was, but I got a mix. So there was shrimp and there was chicken and there was lamb. I don't like lamb. I've discovered this. No, I don't like lamb or goat. They taste similar to me.
I will eat all the lamb that you don't want to eat.
Well, and here's the thing. I always avoid lamb. And I'll never eat veal unless somebody slips it to me. So I guess I can't say never, but I know too much about that.
Yeah, I'm not a big veal eater.
But, so now I know. But the shrimp, oh my God, it was amazing. Wow. It was so wonderfully spiced. And then they had this little yogurt curry sauce with it.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. And naan. Garlic naan. So that was our date. Oh, and we went to Fuzzy's and got mixed drinks to bring home.
Nice.
So, yes.
We did takeout from Merch Masala last weekend.
Oh, okay.
It was very good.
I've heard about them. People say good things. There's a crepe food truck I'm trying to catch up with. But they keep being on the east side of town, and that's pretty much like a 30-minute one-way drive.
Yeah, there's a food truck I would go to, except it's always way up north or way out east. And I'm like, I am pretty friggin' lazy, so.
I know.
I mean, there's good food I have to drive past to get to the food truck.
Right. If I have to go that far for the food truck, what's the point in it being mobile?
Right.
That's my theory. So, if you want my business, I guess you'll come over to this side of town.
Well, shall we launch into our topics for today? You go first.
All right, I'll go first then. So, I am going to be talking about the Doris Bither case, otherwise known as the entity haunting. My sources were the Mystic Medium, Exemplar, and LAist. Okay, the entity the film is based off of a movie, which is based off of a book by Frank D. Felitta, and he wrote that in 1978 based on her case, and it was made into the film in 1982. So I remembered right earlier. Yay! He also wrote the book Audrey Rose, which that movie was based off of. So now I'm curious. I need to read one of those books by him anyway.
Mm-hmm. I remember reading Audrey Rose and liking it.
Okay.
But it was high school, so we're talking it's been a hot minute. I know. Yeah. I sound so youthful.
A hot minute. There's been a little passage of time.
Slightly.
So Doris Bither was a 30-year-old single mom. She moved with her 4 children. She had 3 sons. They were 10, 13, and 16 when this happened, and then her daughter was 6 years old. Each of them was by a different father. So she had a bit of a tumultuous life. They moved into a house I actually have the address and a picture that I'll be posting, which is just the Google Maps image of it. It was 11547 Braddock Drive in Culver City. So they moved there in 1974, I think, from Santa Monica. The relationships that she'd been in with all of these men, she had a tendency to get trapped in abusive relationships. Oh. So by this time, she'd been through a lot. It said that there was abuse in her childhood too, from her parents. In the movie, they imply that it was sexual abuse by her father. They didn't say that in any of the articles I read, so I don't know how true or not that was. She was known to have a strained relationship with her 3 sons by this time. And I mean, 2 of them at least were at awkward teen years, and I can see that happening if she's the primary parent in their lives or the father's not there. And she was said to be wrestling with her own personal demons from this damaging childhood she'd had from these rocky relationships. So she wasn't doing so great. Put that out there. Shortly after they moved into the house, an older woman came to the door. The source all said an older Mexican woman. And she told Doris that as a girl, this woman had lived in that house. And she said, you need to get out. It had been a farm property then. By now, it was, everything had developed around it. But it had been just a house on a farm. And apparently the house showed this strain that it was that old and had been, it wasn't in good shape. It was falling apart. Anyway, she said that there was something evil that lived there, that had been there when she was there, and that Doris should get out immediately. So this was cited in a bunch of things. Nobody knows her name. Nobody cites that. Nobody knows if it's actually true or not. So this woman was the Harbinger. And nobody ever listens to the Harbinger.
No.
Anyway, get out! Don't go further! Back away! They're always weird and creepy. And so...
Well, it's so unexpected, and you don't want to believe it.
Right. When somebody comes out, usually at a gas station. Or they usually don't knock on your door.
Right.
Sometimes they do. They did an Exorcist 2.
Yes, but it is often at a gas station or a small general store.
Right. Where you got to run into the person before you go into the podunk town, the backwoods. And
they give you some kind of cryptic...
And they act super crazy. Yeah. They have crazy eyes.
And sometimes crazy teeth.
Yes. And don't go any further! So, I don't think this woman sounded like that. But anyway, Doris was either already involved with drugs and alcohol, or she got into it after she moved there. So she had some problems with alcoholism, which again, her background kind of, okay. There's a reason for it. She was definitely self-medicating. She was also holding seances and using a Ouija board and doing all this stuff. So she was kind of getting into the paranormal, which is something that her son, Brian, who I believe was the middle son, who was 13, said in interviews. And he also said, though, that they had dealt with hauntings in previous homes. So in Santa Monica, there had been hauntings. It just wasn't at this point. So maybe that's why she got into all of that. But then the question comes in, did she bring something into the house doing this? So several entities in the house began attacking not just Doris. In the movie, it's really it's all about her. Yeah. But they were attacking the children too. So the children were getting bites and scratches on them and getting shoved and pushed. Oh no. Yeah. So her son Brian said there were 4 entities. She reported at least 3. And she said that 2 of them would hold her down and the 3rd would rape her. So that's what the film is very much focused on. And the children witnessed a bunch of the attacks on her mom, which was one of the most chilling parts of the movie for me as a mom, was when it would happen in front of her kids. I felt so bad for her teenage son in this. In the movie, she has one much older teenage son. He looks to be like 17, 18, and then 2 little girls. So they had changed those details. But no child should see their mom being raped by an entity. No. So, yeah, that bothered me. I got goosebumps several times in that movie. It's just really well done. It's sad that it was overlooked then. Anyway, she was regularly brutalized. She was physically moved, thrown across the room. She would bump into something solid. Oh, no. In the middle of the hall. And yeah, she was raped repeatedly by it. And her son felt that they were most attracted to the mother, though. She did take the brunt of it. I mean, unluckily for her, luckily for the kids.
She probably thought it was...
I'm sure she preferred it that way, yeah. But he said because she was so scared and was having such a hard time emotionally, that's why he felt that she was mostly victimized. And they were drawn to her. Yeah. Despite the movie never showing the entities, and again, it's going to be entities throughout it because nobody knows, were they spirits, were they demons, were they... Yeah. The family actually could see the beings sometimes.
Oh, really?
They could see, yes. And so they were foggy and they would have human shapes visible sometimes, and sometimes they could even see faces. Oh. One of the entities was an old man. The kids called him Mr. Who's It. And he was actually harmless. So he was the fourth. He wasn't one of the malicious entities.
Oh.
There were 3 of those, and then this old man. And they actually had decided he was like their dead grandfather or something like that, Mr. Who's It. But I guess he couldn't intervene. I don't know. He never tried to, as far as anybody said. So Brian actually was thrown across the room at one point when he tried to intervene while it was attacking his mom, and he ended up with a broken arm from it.
Holy shit.
So he said, or actually some reports said it was the oldest son. Some said it was Brian. Brian's the only one whose name is given. He's the only one who went ahead and did interviews at some point as an adult. So when they played angry music like Black Sabbath, it would set off the entities and they would react violently. 3 researchers were witnesses to the event occurring in the house. I'm going to talk about 2 of them. So this is why her case has never been dismissed, because other people saw it. It wasn't just a crazy woman, you know.
Right.
And thus it caught the imagination of a bunch of people. It's considered one of the strongest cases for actual paranormal activity still, because they can't discount it. They can't prove it didn't happen. So she confided in them. And it actually, there were some things in the movie that were pretty accurate. 2 of the professionals who saw the phenomenon for themselves were Carrie Gaynor and Dr. Barry Taff. Both men. The name Carrie is Kerry. They were parapsychologists at UCLA and researchers, and they were in a bookstore discussing a case that they were working on, and she overheard them, and she said, oh, well, I have an experience. So, and it was to them that she said that she had haunting experience in Santa Monica as well. So she approached them. They were skeptical, and they said, well, we'll come over and we'll check out some things. When they arrived, they found a house that was totally in shambles, right? It wasn't being maintained.
Right.
There were filthy dishes. There was garbage. It looked like the kids were taking care of themselves, like the teens were feeding the other kids. Right. Nobody was cleaning. She, at this point, had really succumbed to her alcoholism. And despite having invited these men there, she was actually really resistant and kind of a pain in the ass to the things they wanted to do. Or maybe that's a nice way of saying she was drunk and belligerent. I don't know.
Oh, that could be.
Yeah. So the researchers spent about 3 months investigating the home. Yeah.
Wow.
And they witnessed a significant amount of poltergeist activity, including levitating objects. They specifically said pots and pans would levitate, moving lights, smells, sounds, you know, all your typical poltergeist activity. They felt an intense pressure in their ears when they were in her home. And though the family had described being able to see the entities, these researchers never actually saw the physical entities except for one time that I'll talk about in a minute. They did see Doris get thrown across the room. They saw her get hit and you know, in the face. And so they did see some of this activity. Just again, not the entities. When doctors checked Doris, she did exhibit injuries, including those expected in a case of rape. She did have the bruising on her body that corresponded to being forcibly held down, like the bruising around her ankles and her wrists, stuff like that. So she did exhibit marks and injuries.
Yeah.
Dr. Taft brought in a full team there in the end, and they set up in Doris's bedroom at one point to catch some on-camera evidence of the entities, and nothing happened right at first. So Dr. Taft said, okay, go ahead and, you know, call out to them. Start mocking them. See if you can bring them out.
I would be like, no fucking way. You mock them.
Right? You mock them. You get raped today. Thank you. Have a lovely day. So, but she did. And this is the one time they saw an actual entity. They said a green mist formed in the corner, and it was the torso of a large man.
Oh.
And she had always said that there were the 3 entities. 2 of them were smaller, slighter males, and one of them was the big one. He, of course, was the one who was actually doing the attacking. So the mist did not show up on camera, but there are photos, and I will post them, that show an arc of light directly over her head. You see her sitting on this little bed, and you see some of the camera people and stuff around there, and there's this big arc. In the room, there was nothing in the room that was rounded like that could have caused it. And not only that, it's not on the wall, it's in the air over her head. Ooh. And it's a big, vivid arc. And then they had some orbs and some other lights show up, but that was it. Ultimately, Doris and her family ended up moving, and she claimed that the entities followed wherever she went. But the farther she got, the more it faded after a while. She ended up in Texas for a while and then moved back to California.
Wow.
At one point, she went into a doctor and said the entities had impregnated her, and there was, in fact, an ectopic pregnancy.
Oh.
So one wonders, yeah, I don't... Or she was in another nasty relationship, and she was just so deep into the cup that I don't know. Because I don't for a minute believe that she could have gotten pregnant from...
No, that doesn't seem to make sense.
Yeah, what I found interesting was that people obviously don't know what an ectopic pregnancy is, because some of the articles I read were like a hysterical pregnancy / ectopic pregnancy, and I'm like, I'm sorry, ectopic is actually an embryo being implanted in the
fallopian tubes.
Yeah. So and that's not a hysterical pregnancy.
It's painful and dangerous.
And can kill you.
Yeah.
Right. So I was like, do a little bit of research at least. Jesus. So no one living in the house after them claimed any paranormal activity. So people think the entity was related to her. It was following her. It wasn't actually the house that was evil, which discounts the whole Harbinger showing up at her house thing. The family disappeared from the limelight in the 80s. Nobody knew where they'd gone, and that's probably when she was in Texas or something like that. But at that point, they disappeared. It wasn't until 2009 that her middle son, Brian, was found, and that's when he was interviewed by Ghost Theory magazine and I think some other places. So Doris Bither died in 1999 of cardiopulmonary failure. She was only 58 years old. Oh. But it sounded like she'd had a pretty shit life, and that took its toll on her body. Dr. Taft, when interviewed, actually felt it was more likely that Doris had psychokinetic powers instead of it actually being an entity, that she was manifesting these kind of hauntings around the house.
That's interesting.
The family, though, said the poltergeist-like activity was worse when she was home, yes, but that it still occurred when she wasn't there sometimes. So Taft's theory was that a blend of these psychic powers, her long troubled life, her alcoholism, drug abuse, all of this combined and created this poltergeist activity. What I thought was interesting was poltergeist activity classically is associated with a teenager, somebody coming into puberty, usually a female, but she had
isn't it usually a girl?
She had 2 teenage boys in the house who had trouble with their mother.
Right.
And somebody else pointed out, like in comments on one of them, they were like, if the ESP or something like that it could have been a combination. They could have gotten this from their mother, and they could have been feeding it right back. But I didn't really want to go there because it was raping her.
Right.
And so that's...
No.
No. I didn't like it. At this point, Freudian psychology was still a really big thing, so that was called out a lot. And in the movie, they do the same thing, except they imply that it's her, having reverse Oedipal. I mean, they don't ever say the term, and she was like, no, how dare you? So all of that was disturbing. But yeah. So it's a fascinating case, and I'd never even heard of it. Hadn't seen the movie, hadn't heard of this case, and yet it's so big in paranormal circles.
I remember seeing the movie, being completely freaked out.
It's
completely,
chilling.
And I to the point where I would not watch it again.
No, it's astoundingly. I mean, everything is implied, but the way they imply when these things are happening, it's extremely disconcerting, disturbing.
Yes, and as a woman, it's bad enough that you fear.
Yeah.
The fact
but now
that
you have to fear an entity doing it.
Yeah, to think that you have to fear this, something like this could happen, that you could be attacked, that you could be raped, but all of a sudden to have it go one step further and you can't even see it. There's no way to avoid it. Right. You can't change anything to avoid
There's nothing physical to remove. There's nothing physical to fight.
Yeah.
You're completely helpless.
Yeah, I can't. No,
it's a nightmare. And with that first one with the pillow, because she gets hit.
Yeah.
That first time, and she's sitting there, and her nose is bleeding. And she's like, "What the hell?" Because she doesn't see anything. And then there's a pillow shoved over her face, and then it happens. I don't want to go too into descriptive, and I do issue a trigger warning for the movie and the a book, because obviously these things are going to go into more detail. But, it was just really, really, really... literally goosebumps over my body multiple times in it, because it just affected me so deeply watching it.
If I was seeing it for the first time now in a movie theater, I would probably get up and leave.
Yeah.
But at that time, I remember feeling trapped in the movie theater, because I didn't have enough presence of mind to realize, if this is upsetting you this badly, get the fuck out.
Yeah, I did. I walked out of, it was a Sally Field, Kiefer Sutherland movie, and went back in after certain scenes were done. But it was called See No Evil. And Kiefer Sutherland, who I've loved for so long, was the rapist. And it's violent. It's very violent. If you haven't seen it, you don't want to see it.
Okay.
It's a good movie.
Right.
Obviously, it's got Sally Field and Kiefer Sutherland. But that one bothered me so much that I got up and we'll put this in quotes, went to the bathroom, which I actually went out. I don't even remember who I was watching the movie with. Went out and just stood outside the auditorium until the sounds were done.
Right.
And then went back in. And I just remember there were two very disturbing scenes in that I was like,
well, thank you.
I
I'll
can't.
make it a point to not watch that.
Yeah.
I don't even remember hearing about. Excuse me.
If I remember right, he victimizes Sally Field's daughter. I don't think Sally Field is the victim in it, and I don't know. She possibly dies, and that's what sets it off. And she's hunting him down. I don't know. It's been a long time.
That sounds
I have not
familiar.
watched it again because
no.
it was too much.
No. Well, speaking of too much,
ooh,
I am going to talk about the Black Sisters, which has fucking nothing to do with Harry Potter.
Okay.
I was starting to, because I found the reference to this, and I'm like, ooh, I'm going to look this up, because where do we go to look everything up the first time? We go to Wikipedia. Can't find anything on Wikipedia. Can't find anything on Murderpedia.
Of note, that's why Wikipedia was not a source on Doris Bither, even though they had a piece on her. It was like a paragraph, and I was all, whoa.
I was able to find some stuff, but I'll come back around to what I found on Wikipedia. So there was only in your state.com. Mm-hmm. So it was 6 unsolved mysteries in Virginia that will leave you baffled.
I think I used them for the Fall River, whatever it was.
Oh, possibly.
In Denver. Yeah.
Roanoke.com. It was the Roanoke Times archive. 3 sisters and their haunting history. And I'll get around to the Wikipedia article when I get to it.
Okay.
And I read a lot of other places, but I was reading people. Apparently, the town where this all happened in, it was, where the hell is the name of the town? Christiansburg, Virginia.
Okay.
So there's a school on the grounds where some of this happened, and one of the teachers really get into it, so they assign creative writing assignments, so you have to weed out all that.
Gotcha.
You have to go through and go, okay, this is somebody making shit up. So I am apparently still stuck in 1910. I didn't know that. I did not know when this was all set, and it kind of culminates in 1910. Apparently, people were just fucking killing family members left and right back then. So, the Black Sisters are Mary Sneed, Caroline Martin, and Virginia Wardlaw. And these were 3 sisters who were nicknamed the Black Sisters because whenever they were out in public, they were always dressed in heavy black clothing, long black skirts, and they always big black hats, and they never went out without several layers of black lace veiling covering their faces.
Yeesh.
And these people had some fucking issues.
They sound fun.
Don't they? They do. They sound delightful. So these were, in their youth, they were Southern debutantes. And apparently they were supposed to have all these ties to prominent Virginia families. But despite, and this is just fucking kills me, despite inheriting more than one fortune, they couldn't hold on to their money. They kept losing it because they would get invested in schools, and then the school would go bankrupt.
Oh.
You're going to understand why their schools were going bankrupt.
Were they married, or because were those their last names that you were mentioning?
2 of them had been married,
okay,
and widowed. And the one, Wardlaw, Virginia, had never been married, I believe.
Okay, so they were originally all Wardlaws.
Yes. Yes, Mary and Caroline were both widowed. So, yeah, they would just get into these schools and they would be hired to run them. Because in those days, and it was like a boarding school for girls, they would absolutely run them into the ground. They would terrorize the students. They would make capricious changes, just suddenly change the schedules and the courses and even the room assignments with no reason. So then they were just batty as fuck. So when they started acting weird and all this stuff happened, the girls would stop coming, enrollment would decline, and so the school would close.
So they should have invested in schools and then stayed the hell away from
Yes.
them. Yeah.
They should have. Yes. Exactly. So, I'm going to back up for a second. In 1876, they had an aunt whose name, I shit you not, was Oceana Pollock.
Great name.
Isn't it? I was like, because the last name didn't even get me at first, and then I went back and I went, oh, fuck. Her first name is Ocean, her last name is a fish. So, she bought the Montgomery Female Academy in Christiansburg, Virginia, at auction. It had closed, so it had been closed for a few years. She bought it at auction and became its principal. And it, about 10 years later, in 1887, it was deeded to Ebenezer Baird and his wife, but Pollock remained the principal.
So, I'm assuming these are like one-room type schoolhouses, the old schoolhouses?
No, these
or
were
are they
boarding
big?
schools.
Oh,
These were
boarding
big boarding
schools.
schools.
Oh, okay.
And
Big,
this is
privately owned, cray-cray boarding schools.
This is why you check references when you're hiring someone to run your school. After Pollock retired around 1903, Virginia Wardlaw, her niece, the one who had never been married, became the principal, which was essentially running the academy. So then she brought her sisters Mary and Carolyn, were both widowed. They came to help her run the boarding school. And let me know if something I say doesn't make sense, because this was so freaking hard to piece together, because you get little tiny bits here and there, and then you have to go back and go, were there two? And then all of a sudden it'll be like, and then they had a brother, but we don't know anything about it. And I'm like, where did that come from? It was later suspected, at the end of all this, they suspected that Caroline had killed her husband and her young son Hugh, who died in a fall down the stairs in 1888. And what happens in the early 1900s? Why do people kill other people? It's because they took out life insurance on them.
Right. Everybody had this run there. Was insurance new or something?
It must have been, and I'm like, what? Why would you? Anyway, so there was a scandal because one of the students attending the school was impregnated by one of the town boys. And that baby disappeared. Nobody seemed to know what happened. Students at the academy reported a lot of weird goings on. Courses and room assignments, as I said, were constantly changing. Can you just imagine how frustrating that would be?
Yeah, it's the Winchester House of Schools.
Yes, and apparently, and at first I thought, the students would wake up in the middle of the night to find the three sisters in their room, like standing near the bed and gesturing and muttering.
Oh, all right.
Gesturing
putting
and
spells
muttering,
on them.
Apparently, gesturing and muttering plays into this a lot. And I'm like, okay, is this just sour grapes from the girls? But it was like girls would get up in the morning, pack the fuck up, and leave. I don't blame them.
Well, yeah. When the headmistresses or whatever the hell they were called
are standing over you,
muttering, probably in their veils.
Yes, in the black clothing.
No,
I would get a lock for first of all. There's got to be a hardware store in town.
You know me; I would be sleeping with a weapon.
Yes, you would.
So they would have gotten.
It would have been a
whatever I could find in the school.
Later, attacks after all this started coming out, after they were arrested. A taxi driver said they frequently hired him at night to drive them to the cemetery, and they wanted to be left at the very edge of the cemetery, and they would walk in. And for a long time, he didn't have any idea what was going on. So, of course, it wouldn't be a good story if he didn't follow them one night. So he did, And they were gathered around a grave, gesturing and chanting.
And muttering?
Muttering.
Was there muttering?
There was muttering. His blood ran cold.
Oh, I'm sure it did.
Because he felt that evil was near, and that was evil with a capital E.
Evil.
Evil. Yes, he could just feel it. I'm like, well, there goes your tip.
It was actually just his cold blood that he was feeling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Possibly. So, Mary... Okay, yes. I'm like, because it gets a little confusing, because all of a sudden it mentions somebody named Albert, and I'm like, who the fuck is Albert? So Mary had 3 sons, and Albert is the one I could not find anything about. So we don't know what happened to Albert, but
he was normal.
John and what's the other one? Fletcher. So Mary Sneed, John and Fletcher Sneed, her 2 sons, had both married, and I believe Fletcher divorced his wife. Mary went to John's house and told him he needed to leave his wife and come teach with her at the academy. And apparently the first time she went and said this, he had to call the police to have her removed from his property, to have her removed from the home.
Mm-hmm.
So, which to me sounds like he does not want to go, because these people are fucking bad shit. But then she went again, and he agreed to leave his wife and come work with her. So, on their way into town, John fell, can you hear the air quotes, from the train and was nearly killed.
Huh.
One of the conductors said it looked to him like a suicide attempt. Then, like a few weeks later, he nearly drowned in a cistern under a school. It wasn't their school, it was a different school, but still, a cistern under the school. So it's not like he was out walking along and tripped and fell into the cistern. But a caretaker, found him in time and pulled him out and revived him. A week after that, just a week later, he was found burning, writhing, covered in flames in his kerosene-soaked bed.
Good Lord. Where was his wife?
She was still wherever they had been. Murfreesboro, Tennessee. I think that's how it's said.
Woo!
There's too many R's in that word.
I wouldn't want to live there. Where are you from? I don't want to say it.
Up the road a piece. So he had recently changed the beneficiary of his life insurance from his wife to his Aunt Virginia.
Why?
Yeah. And they suspected foul play at the time, but the aunts eventually collected the life insurance. Yeah, I'm like, because that's...
Come on, investigators.
Yes. Although back in that day, police did not investigate. You had to hire an investigator to investigate. Now, then there was Fletcher, Mary's son Fletcher, who married... Mary's son married Caroline's daughter.
No.
Yes, they were first cousins.
I don't like it.
No, her name was Osie.
That's a way to interbreed the crazy.
Yeah. So I was like, Osie, and then I looked it up. She was named Oceana after the aunt, but Osie was spelled Ocie, O-C-E-Y, was her nickname. That's what she was known as. Ugh. And one of those 3 sisters, her middle name was Oceana. So anyway, she married her cousin Fletcher Sneed in secret in 1906, against the wishes of their family. Gosh, what a surprise.
Actually, it is kind of a surprise. You're crazy.
Then there was a second public wedding in 1908, apparently after the sisters came around to the idea of the marriage, and it didn't hurt that Osie was pregnant. So Osie and Fletcher had 2 children. A daughter, Mary, was born in 1908, and a son, David, in 1909. Fletcher left. The dirtbag. Because his aunts are crazy, so he leaves his sick, pregnant wife. After their first child had died, and before their second child was born, he leaves her and goes to Canada, and she never hears from him again. In fact, her aunts told her he was dead. He was not, because he was later tracked down in Canada. He was cooking at a logging camp. He was the camp cook, and he was cleared. He was completely cleared of any being implicit in any of this.
Everything other than being a dick.
Other than being a gigantic asshole for leaving her, because she was in ill health, and it says that the child was in ill health, but he was given to an orphanage or a hospital and never came home. But I'm thinking both children died so early. Could it have been birth defects because of how closely the parents were related?
Oh, yeah.
That wasn't, nobody said that. That was just my thought. So at some point in here, they have a doctor come to treat Osie. And the doctor's like, well, she needs food for one thing. And they weren't feeding her. They were barely keeping her alive. Giving her, and this was one of their daughter.
Yeah.
It was the daughter of one of the sisters. So a doctor who was treating her tried to help her and would sneak her food and tried to come in and help her out, but the aunts caught him and threw him out. And a lawyer advised him there was nothing he could do legally.
Right.
When he went,
she's way too old for him to like take her away.
Yes. So when he went back to check on her again, the sisters had up and moved. The place was abandoned. There was no Osie there. They just up and moved her and gone.
How dare somebody try and feed this child?
Yes.
This woman.
So they turned up in Brooklyn, and they went and found, this is just too weird. They went and sought out a lawyer. Would you please come to our home and help our relative who is dying? She wants to write a will. He says, okay. So he comes and I don't think it could have been very hard. He clues into what's actually going on, and he was like, she needs medical care. She needs food. And they're like, we're sorry, we don't have any money.
Okay, are you guys eating or?
They were going out to restaurants.
Oh, Jesus.
And eating. So, and after her son was born and taken away from her, they started dosing her with morphine. So they're starving her and dosing her with morphine. So they want him to help her write a will, of course, leaving everything to them. At some point, briefly, Osie and this lawyer are alone in the room, and she pulls out a piece of paper from under her pillow and hands it to him and said, this is my will. So that left everything to her grandmother.
Oh.
So in 1909, they move again. They move from Brooklyn to New Jersey. And they called the police to report a death. And the reports of the house, it's very sparsely furnished. You know, it's like got a rickety old bed and a chair and a barrel for a table. There's some condensed milk in the kitchen, and that's it. There's no food. It's filthy. And Osie has mysteriously drowned in the bathtub.
Okay.
And there was a suicide note pinned to her clothing next to the tub.
That's handy.
Yeah. Well, so the police arrested the sisters when they discovered that there were several life insurance policies on this poor woman. And so they were accused of starving her, poisoning her, and eventually drowning her, their niece and daughter. And then the police also found in her mother's possession several versions of the suicide note in the exact same handwriting as the one that was...
Oh, wow. I mean, burn that shit. If you're
right?
at least have some brains.
Throw it away. Get it out of the house.
Sounds like she stubbornly survived for all this time.
For a very
like
long
she was
time.
a sturdy woman to begin with.
So in 1910, see, I knew we'd get back to 1910.
Oh. There was an axe.
They were brought, no, sadly no. They were brought to trial in 1910. So the Roanoke Times reported that the case wasn't helped by the sisters' alternately hysterical and occult behavior while in custody. Caroline was convicted of the murder and sentenced to 7 years. She was actually sentenced to prison, but she didn't last there very long, and they moved her to a mental hospital where she later died.
Okay.
Mary would have been convicted, but she got off on a technicality because I think Caroline was convicted of manslaughter, and you can't be an accessory to manslaughter. You can only be an accessory to murder. Or something like that at the time.
Doesn't manslaughter mean not pre-planned?
I'm just...
They planned real hard.
They did.
Over and over when it didn't work.
So it was funny because the one website said she fled. She got off on a technicality and fled to Colorado.
Everybody flees to Colorado.
Right? Here we are. We are the Australia of, of the United States.
Great.
Actually, she had a son. Although why anyone would take any of these women in, but she had a son who came and got her and brought her to his ranch in Colorado.
Oh.
So, I don't know that she actually fled. Virginia, the former principal of the school that brought her sisters in, the one who never married, starved herself to death before the judge could make a ruling.
Well, that's one way to do it.
And I thought, you have to be, and Virginia was the kind of the craziest of the lot. Wherever she worked, there were reports of very odd behavior, but it would never specify, just, yes, she had very odd behavior. So I could not find anything about these three sisters on Wikipedia, but O.C. Sneed is in Wikipedia, the one that they killed.
Huh.
That was how I had to go about to get some of the background and the timeline and the dates. I mean, the one woman killed her husband and her son. Why they wanted to kill, it was never made clear, except for the insurance money, why they wanted to kill their children. Their adult children.
Because you can take out insurance on one of your children probably easier than some others.
I mean, can you just take out insurance on anybody?
Apparently.
I mean, I don't know. If anybody out there is in the insurance industry,
I'm going to go try that.
And knows how this works, do not take out a policy on me. But I'm like, really? Could I just go, hey, I want to take out a policy on Joe Schmo and for millions of dollars.
Right? I'm going to pick somebody that irritates me.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't have to tell him, do I? I know exactly who we should take a policy on. I don't know. We'll talk about that when we're not recording.
Right. We let's not discuss crimes on
But would it be just buying the insurance might not be a crime. And I imagine the insurance industry has changed in the last 120 years. 110 years.
But geez.
So
it's funny how quickly people went to abusing insurance once it was a thing.
Yeah, but I'm like, what? I can't imagine raising a child and then looking at him and hearing cha-ching of a cash register.
Well, the women back in 1900s, late 1800s, right? So many of them did that with their children. I guess they were real tired of their shit. It's like, all these phases will move on. Like you just got to get through this tough one. The child will get older. It's okay.
That whole 13
But adult children, I mean, they're out of the damn house.
Or they would be if you left them alone. If you left them with their wife, they'd be fine.
Right? Instead of bringing... God. First, push him off a train. Try to drown him in a cistern.
Or it's so bad, he jumps off the train to get away from you. And then, how do you retaliate? You set his ass on fire.
With kerosene. In his bed.
I'm like, you can't. That's not
some
a drop.
Mafia shit.
That's not a dropped cigarette. I mean, there wasn't even an attempt to.
I dropped my kerosene lantern all over the bed, and then decided to have a smoke.
Rolled in it first, got good and wet.
Jeez.
We were having a wet T-shirt contest in the dorm. We didn't have any water,
so we thought we'd use kerosene.
Yeah. Like the seat in Zoolander at the gas station.
Oh. Yeah.
When I saw that, I was horrified. Absolutely horrified. Because I was like, no! But it was such a stupid, in a good way, such a stupid moment in the movie.
Well, there are many stupid moments.
In Zoolander? There are. It's kind of the entire movie, but...
What kind of model is David Duchovny in that? Isn't he in it as like...
Oh.
A hand model or I don't remember. I thought his was like a weird...
Maybe. I'd forgotten he was in it.
I had the hots for him too. Honestly, I had the hots for, I think, half of the men acting. Well, apparently just really enjoy an attractive man.
Okay. Well, why not?
It was his dry sense of humor.
Yes.
That is one thing that'll sucker me in. Again, Robert Downey Jr. Sucker me in, really suckle me. That was a Freudian slip, if anything.
That was a Freudian camisole.
Jesus. But yeah, that'll bring me in.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Sense of humor.
Yep.
A good and a dry, a smart sense of humor.
Or it's somebody or it was the bad boy with no sense of humor. Somehow was also an attractor, and I don't understand why.
Huh.
Well, yeah. Was a character in Class of 1999. He's really a dick now that I watch it. I was like, that's kind of hot. So, honestly, runaway hormones or something, I guess.
Oh, I can remember being pregnant when I saw Independence Day in the theater. And I went, my God, Jeff Goldblum is the most attractive man I've ever seen.
That's one of his hot roles, though. Him and Will Smith in that.
Both
it's just
of them.
Like, oh gosh, which do I choose? They're so different.
No. It's not.
You don't choose.
It's both. It's not or.
You say, hey, baby, I'd like a little Independence Day in my own bedroom. Him in Jurassic Park. I just watched Earth Girls Are Easy again recently.
I have never seen.
Oh my gosh.
I haven't.
You haven't? It's redonkulous.
I may have been in an altered state when I saw it and thus not remember it.
Well, that's probably a good film to watch in an altered state. They shave these 3 fuzzy aliens that look like something that would be in a children's program. And out walks... Now, I always found Damon Wayans attractive, but he's not attractive in this.
So who are the
I don't
3?
mean he's unattractive. It's Damon Wayans. It's Jeff Goldblum. He comes out and she's like, oh. And then it's Jim Carrey. Yeah. He's the surfer type who, again, neither him nor Damon Wayans were the ones I was paying attention to in that movie. And you've got Julie Brown from MTV then.
Yeah.
Because I'm a blonde. Yeah. And Sheena Davis just... It's the most ridiculous movie ever, but I love it.
I'll have to watch it
You
again.
need to watch it.
Or if we ever get to travel again, that'll be our what to watch one night.
Yeah!
Ridiculous
I'm
movies.
pretty sure I have it on TV, so...
You have all the movies.
I do. We did have all of our movies on a system, and our server done broke. I went on, I was like, I'm going to put on, I don't know, St. Elmo's Fire or something in the background, something that I've seen 5 trillion times, and it wasn't working, and then it's all gone.
Oh.
So now we have to pull out all of those movies from our Rubbermaid tubs, buried in the basement.
You know what I wanted to watch last night?
What?
So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Oh, yeah.
I
haven't watched that in forever.
Movie. Woman. Whoa, man.
Mike Myers.
All right, so you can find out more about us. We encourage you, if you have weird things, tell us the weirdest thing that's ever happened to you. Tell us the weirdest thing that ever happened in your hometown that everybody talked about or screwed you up for the rest of your life. You can reach us at mysteriesmonstersmayhem@gmail.com. We are on Facebook as Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
And our website is www.mysteriesmonstersmayhem.com. And there is a form on there for you to submit your stories as well if you don't want to just shoot us an email.
Yes, we would love to hear from you. Please feel free when we get facts wrong, like if you know anything about the insurance industry, and if we can buy, life insurance on total random strangers.
Right? That's great. Know. It won't look suspicious at all.
No, not after this episode. Nobody else. Although, how frightening would it be to say, hey, guess what I bought today? I got some insurance.
I feel reassured that the insurance on me that Jeff has is actually just small enough to basically pay for a service and whatever.
Yeah.
But his, all manner. Because there's work insurance.
Oh, yes.
If he ever happens to die on a business trip, I guess I really cash in. I'm like, gosh, that makes me sad to think about, but okay. Because he told me, he's like, yeah, if I ever die on a business trip, okay.
You're like, well, please
I guess
don't.
if you ever got in a plane crash. So, yeah.
Oh, then you'd get the money from the
right? I would roll in it, but I would not have my husband, and therefore I would be sad.
Yes, you would rather have your husband.
I would.
Yeah.
It's kind of like after my dad died, suddenly for the first time, mom has like she had money because it's insurance, and it's like, and all she can think is and say is, oh, if I'd had this when he was alive, we could have still traveled when he was in the wheelchair, and we could have afforded to do all these things. And so what the fuck do I want with this now? See, that's a real marriage.
Yep.
Not a, I took out 5 insurance policies on you so I could kill you.
On my nephew, and then I flung him off the train.
Right. And then I put him in how do you get a man in a cistern? Anyway.
I don't know.
That must have been maybe a suicide attempt. Like, they're going to do something awful to me. I'm just going to throw myself in a cistern. Why could he not just leave? Why could he not go back to his wife? I don't know.
There's so many unanswered questions here. All right.
All right.
Be safe.
Thank you.